Hi everybody. I'm John Self. Welcome to Career Live on YouTube. It's a great Thursday night, and unlike last Thursday night when I was sitting here with the tornado sirens going off, it's relatively quiet tonight. There are some storms west, northwest, and northwest of us. You know, for years we would go 2 or 3 years and never hear a siren go off here, and in the last past year, it's like a weekly or every other week an event. So, a piece of excitement, all things considered, I'd just as soon avoid. Back in the 70s, when I was a newspaper editor for the Lubbock Avalanche Journal in beautiful Lubbock, in Lubbock, Texas, home of Texas Tech University, the South Plains was part of the old-fashioned, old-line Tornado Alley. Today, they still have some thunderstorms out there, but most of the tornadoes now have shifted to the eastern part of Texas, and they sort of spin up around here, and then by the time they get into, the storms get into Louisiana, Mississippi, in that Arkansas, Kentucky, they really get ramped up. So we are supposed to have some bad weather later tonight, and so hopefully it'll be uneventful. It's been a long day, and this has been a crazy week. So let's get started. What a way to end the week. Okay, talking about a little anxiety. Interest rates are up. Okay, which is, that was no big surprise. I was on a call, and some people, when I said, oh my gosh, the Fed just increased the rates again, people acted like it was going to be a big surprise, and they've been telegraphing this for weeks. They now have said we're done for a while, but typically what I think you're going to see happen, probably in September, October, you'll see them, if inflation's not down, you'll see them go back to raise rates again. So interest rates are up. New employment claims are moving upward, which is not a good sign. The number of available jobs is declining as companies tighten operating expenses by eliminating the millions of some of the unfilled jobs left over from the pandemic. Now, this is not, I've said this before, I think we're going to have a recession. I hope it's not a real severe recession, but this is not a time to run screaming through the streets. But today, more than last week or last month or 3 months ago when I first started talking about this, it is time to think about contingency plans in the event widespread layoffs do begin to occur. Now, this is the theme of tomorrow's special edition of Got a Minute, which is going to drop around probably 8 o'clock in the morning. We normally drop it in the evening, and it probably will post later tonight, but will probably not be widely seen until in the morning. This is a little bit longer than normal Got a Minute because we outline 6 steps that you need to begin taking behind the scenes to get ready for a layoff. And if it doesn't come, you're still that much better off. And it really, unless you hire a coach or hire a consultant, you're really not out any money. But you really want to begin pulling information together and begin thinking with your family, okay, if this does happen, where do we want to be and who do we want to be with? So to look for that to later tonight or in the morning. Now, tonight, we are going to answer your questions. So drop them in the chat. Look forward to having you to answer your questions. But first, let's go back and talk about some issues with the resume, the style, and how to get a recruiter's attention. That's something that has come up repeatedly over the last week. People asking, what can I do to get their attention? Well, first of all, we've discussed this before, but it's important to remember that a lot of times the recruiter does not see your resume when it first comes in. That's called the first interview, and today it's not, you're not there and the client's not there, but a computer is. And so the computer may take 400 or 500 resumes that come in for a job. And then they sort them all out because there will be a lot of people who sit back and just submit jobs left, right, and center, even if they don't even have a 30 or 40 or 50% match on the selection criteria. Don't do that. It's a waste of your time. And if you do that repeatedly, it will affect your relationship or your brand with that organization in the future if they do have a good job. So if you don't qualify in the 75 or, minimum 75, but I recommend 80% of the selection criteria, don't waste your time. The more time you spend wasting, your time and effort and an hour and 20 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever it takes to submit online, that's another hour to your search. And I guarantee you the computer is not, something will not work out. Now, in the old days, contingency recruiters would just throw a bunch of stuff in and it stick on the wall and hope something would work out. Computers, algorithms, math formulas, nothing is going to work out. There's no emotion there. So, don't waste your time doing that. Secondly, we've touched on this in the past, but we want to share some rules of the road for avoid getting dropped from the search that you might be a perfect fit for. Now, more and more companies with technology, they're bringing more and more of their recruiting indoors. That is to say, they're hiring their own recruiters, and search firms are seeing a decline in business. Now, the big names are still doing the C-suite stuff. But, the widespread vice president, director level searches that used to go on for years and years and years, that's tapering off. And so everybody is trying to continue to make their numbers, make their revenue. And so a company may post a job on their site, and a recruiter may see that posting and then see your resume and say, oh man, this is perfect. They'll call you and say, hey, listen, would like to submit you for this position. Now, if you've already applied online, absolutely tell them, no, you may not submit my resume. Well, I've got special relationships and I can probably give you an extra push. Let me tell you something. As soon as you do that, that recruiter is going to have a claim on a 25% fee of your salary. So if you are going to make $100,000, that's a fairly significant fee. It's going to be 25% plus any expenses that they might be able to recapture. Don't do that, because you know what will happen? The employer will say, look, there are plenty of qualified people. We don't want to pay that recruiter or argue with that recruiter for that $25,000 or $30,000. So just drop that candidate off out of the search. So be very careful. Don't let somebody come along, because what happens is contingency recruiters don't get paid unless they make a placement. And they're like anybody else. They're all scrambling to take care of their families, to make a good income, and to keep their jobs, because their calls are counted, their placements are counted, and so they're all looking for any way. They're trying to be aggressive and to make placements. So be very, very careful. More and more searches are being done by corporate headhunters, the in-house headhunters, and so if you see the job posted on their website, do not engage with a recruiter, okay? That is a sure way to get eliminated from the search, even if you're 100% match for the job. So don't get involved in that. Now, when you talk about retained recruiters, they typically they are hired by the employer. They work on a consulting basis. They get a retainer, and they work on an exclusive basis. And nobody else is entitled to work on that search. The company may post, but when they get those postings, they're going to turn all those resumes over to the search firm. And so that's usually at the senior level when management wants some outside expertise. But supervisory positions, director positions, management positions, if they're posted online in the company's website, do not get involved with a recruiter, because you could find yourself in a bit of a pickle. Okay? So that's just a bit of a heads up that I wanted to share with you tonight. I had several questions also about how to get attention from the recruiters with your resume. 10 years ago, resume writers did really some great, interesting work on color selection and design to get a recruiter's attention, because there wasn't the technology, and recruiters literally had to go through and really look at a lot of different resumes. So it was to their advantage, the designer's advantage and your advantage, to have a really striking resume and color and graphs and all that jazz. That is really a good way to get eliminated today. Why? A scanner reads left to right, okay? So if you're using multiple columns, that could throw off the scanner. If it throws off the scanner, your resume probably won't be read correctly, which means it'll get a lower score and probably will not make the cut. If you have a lot of graphs or pictures or things like this, it will throw off the scanner and you may get eliminated completely. So in other words, it'll just kick it off into the dark hole that where dead resumes go. So, use a pretty straightforward design, because the computers are helping make a lot of the initial decisions, flashy jazz boo design and colors really doesn't give you any advantage, and if anything, will get you eliminated. We have a free resume guide. If you subscribe to one of our newsletters or one of our daily video emails that goes out at 8 a.m. in the morning, you get a copy or get access to the free resume guide. It's a resume guide that recruiters from several industries got together and said this is a good, safe, scannable document, and it's a good way to highlight your information. Now, another question came up. Tell me about how I should construct my professional profile in the top of the resume. The first sentence should really be a summary that really speaks to what that prospective employer is looking for. And then everything else in that professional summary should be relevant, focused on what that job they're looking to fill and what skills they're looking for. And if you have those skills, you need to summarize them, with some teases for the success that you've had in achieving results with those areas. Okay, that's really, really important, because even after the computer finishes and they may give 20 to a recruiter, the recruiter then is going to sort of narrow down the field, and they're going to be reading that summary and looking for some, that's a quick way to decide if this resume's in or out. So be sure that you don't just, the profile needs to be customized, but it's not a throwaway part of the resume. It's really integral to your selection. So be sure you do that. I got another question that said, look, I am a director. I live in the northwest part of Houston. I'm applying for a position with an organization in the Clear Lake City area. Should I list my address? As a manager, supervisor, director, I would not put my address there, because you might give a recruiter you may be the person who had the job before struggle to get to work on time because they had a long commute. So don't use your address at that lower level position. You may have to give it to them at some point when they want to do a background check, or if that's necessary. But I wouldn't put it on the resume. Just put, if you're in the metropolitan Houston area, just put Houston. If you're in the Conroe area, I would put Houston area. Because Conroe is 45 minutes north of Houston, and Clear Lake City is probably another 30 or 40 minutes. And Houston's legendary traffic, that's probably a way that would probably give a recruiter pause and might get you eliminated. So I would just let them fall in love with you first, okay? So be careful with how you use your address. Now, if you're applying for an executive level position, I would use my address because that's where you live is less importance versus your ability to do the job and your irrelevant experience. Somebody also said, how much information should I put on the resume? Everything that's relevant to that job. Now, some organizations, and you need to read the submission guidelines very carefully. Some recruiters, internally and externally, like to see a whole record of your employment. So I would only list the last 10 years with any detail, okay? Then after that, I would list under that title, organization, and date of employment, just to have that record if they're asking for it. If they're not asking for it, then you can always provide it at a later date, okay? But don't load up. There may be things you really are proud of, and there are things that you may really think are important, and the client, the prospective employer, may have no interest whatsoever. Let the job summary and any other notes that they provide you be the guide. Cover letters. Don't submit a cover letter unless they ask for one. Because if you are basically putting it in with your resume as a cover for the resume, the scanner may get confused about what this is and may not give you a high scan score. Some scanners maybe even kick out the whole application. So don't submit a cover letter unless it's specifically asked for a cover letter. Be safe. Now, if some people actually will use plain text resumes to be sure that they're getting through the scan process, and then once they get called by the recruiter for a screening interview, they will send a formatted resume with a cover letter in regular email. So that's something that you might want to consider. Okay. We've had several comments this week. Last week, as you may remember, we talked a lot about what was going on with LinkedIn and how it's really become a traffic jam of people who are on the site which might be bots. You'll see at the top LinkedIn member, and then there's no other name at the top, and then there's a name signed under a message, and a lot of those messages sound strangely familiar. Okay, so I believe a lot of them are bots. Initially, as a coach trying to build this business, I was trying to engage those people. The first thing they want to do is, I only use WhatsApp and Telegraph. I don't like using LinkedIn. Well, then don't use LinkedIn. Go away. LinkedIn, and then they want to say, I could learn from you. Let's talk about things. Well, they don't want to talk about your business. They don't really want to talk about your skills. They just want to chit chat because that's what they do on other social media sites, and that's not what LinkedIn is. So what I've started doing, and I would urge you to do the same thing, is if they're not following the request for a connection, in other words, going to your LinkedIn site and asking for a connection, then I just delete them from now on. And I'm probably, as people try to message me and they want to go to Telegram or WhatsApp. And the reason they like those is both of those are encrypted. And so if they want to engage in activity that might be criminal or might be fraudulent, they are a little bit more protected on those two apps. Not everybody is fraudulent. Not everybody's a scam artist. But a lot of these people are women from Southeast Asia or China, and they're all in the jewelry business, the beauty business. Some are real estate. Some call themselves investment advisors. And my experience with investment advisors is they always want to try to then lead you to crypto, which I don't know about you, but anything that doesn't have an underlying value is craziness. And so I just cut them off at that point. So for people like me who have to engage with people, I mean, it's kind of frustrating. A lot of people are reporting that, they connect with people, they try to work with people, they don't get any response. So if you're not, that's why I'm telling you in our post in the morning, the video post in the morning, is be very focused on your networking. Don't just sit back and take connections requests from other people. Decide who you want to connect with. Send them a customized note when you make that request for a connection. And, talk about how you might want to live in that part of the country, how you always admired their organization and would like to learn more as time goes by, and would certainly be open to any networking or, provide any information that might be mutually beneficial. And you also really need to begin thinking about using video email devices, because everybody is just using plain text back and forth on LinkedIn. And if you're trying to build a connection into a relationship that's based on trust, you've got to do a lot of different things to build that. So you need to use the SendSpark or Loom or BombBomb. Some of those have free services so that you get limited access to the platform, which allows you to record emails and send emails either in regular email or in LinkedIn. So that can be some of those services. They offer that as a free service. So that would be something you might want to consider. Salespeople, real estate and industrial salespeople who've been using this device for some time say that their emails are 70% more likely to be opened when there is a video animated GIF involved. So if you're going to make one of these videos to, say, a new connection, I use iMovie, and I create a thank you graphic that moves. so that they know it's a video and not some kind of malware. And I usually use the words "thank you for connecting with me" is part of the message. And then at the top of the email, when I acknowledge, when I go up and spend every week, I'll go in and approve connections. I'll click it, and it goes up to the top where you can click the little blue button and then send them a message. And I say, if it's Virginia, comma, thanks for connecting with me. I've made this special video to introduce who I am, period. And most people are now, if you don't put that in there, they may not open it. And there are some people that are scared of their shadows and don't open it because of their fear of malware. And that's understandable. But, if it has an animation and it's not just a link, then people typically open that. So you might consider using that as a way to accelerate developing relationships. That's really important because if you're going to need help in referring people to jobs or having you introduced into their companies, you've got to build trust. And you need to accelerate that. The next thing you always need to do is check daily or every other day the notifications at the top of the LinkedIn and look for your contacts' birthdays, anniversaries, promotions, new jobs. Be sure that you send customized messages to them, when you get a message that says, my middle initial is G. Hi, John G. Happy birthday. Well, it's my birthday on Saturday, and so I'm beginning to get a lot of messages, which is very nice. But when they say, happy birthday, John G., I know that all they did was click a button. And to be perfectly honest, that's not even meaningful to me, okay? And what I do is I have a birthday message that I edited on iMovie that I recorded on SynSpark, which is the service I use, and it's 15 seconds. And it's happy, and there's fireworks and birthday candles, and it says, hey, best wishes for a great birthday, and many, many more. And that's it. Okay, that will differentiate you from a lot of other people that they're connected with, and that's what you want to do. You want to differentiate yourself, and you want to build trust. You want to build a relationship. If they have an anniversary or a birthday, you send them a special message. Don't just do the click stuff. If it's important enough to be connected with them, it's important enough to really do the right thing and be classy about it and not just sit there mindlessly clicking. That reminds me of people who used to apply on jobs from Monster. All they do is just see how many times they could click the apply button in a 24-hour period, and they'd send out hundreds of applications that nobody ever considered. So make it personal, make it engaging. Another question that has come up is, if at what point do I submit references? Do not submit references until you are asked to submit references. That is, unless the instructions you receive from the website and the recruiter that you're dealing with specifies a different time frame. And the reason you don't want to submit the references until you've been requested to do so, and I apologize, my allergies are crazy tonight. The reason you don't want to do that is because if you send in your references, you won't know what's going on. If they ask for your references, now you know that you're being seriously considered, because trust me, people don't check references for people that they're not interested in. So hold your references back until you're asked for it. If they ask for 3, send 4. You always want to have an extra one in case somebody's out of town or somebody's sick. And that way the search doesn't get delayed. They can go to an optional person. Always submit 1 or 2 peers, a superior, and a subordinate. That's a good mix. So how you mix that up, some people submit 4 or 5. That's fine. I wouldn't submit more than that because the standard is still crazily 3. I'm not sure why that ever was, but that's the thing. So, but recruit your references early in your search. They can, in giving you feedback about what they might say about you, that gives you some heads up about whether they're going to be a good reference or not. And 2, some of the things they share with you about, gosh, when you first came, you were really weak at this, but you really got better at that. Okay, that is something you can use and add to your story during an interview and build. And if they hear that from the reference, it just adds credibility for your story. So look at that very, very carefully. We have about 4 or 5 more minutes left tonight, and no tornado sirens, so that's great. We're always getting, I always get, why are you wearing a bow tie? Hey, I'm on fire for bow ties. No, I've been, this Thursday are live days, and then I also had some other meetings and coaching sessions today. So I primarily focus with managers, executives, and so I tend to, on days where I have multiple things going, I tend to wear a tie. Now, what I have below my waistline, whether I have a suit pants on or shorts, is going to be my secret. But anyway, hope you like the tie. My wife sometimes is skeptical of my bow ties. I could wear an expensive tie through O'Hare Airport. I mean, I won't name a brand, but really expensive, and nobody would say a word. I could put on this bow tie, and there's some other ones I had, and everywhere I went, people would say, "Hey, like your tie." So there's a CEO that's currently working on an interim project up in Alaska, and he's a great guy, and he loved bow ties, and he was known as Mr. Bow Tie, but it was part of his brand, his identity, and so anyway. If there are any other questions, let's see. Okay. Part-time work. Is that going to hurt my brand? Actually, not really, okay? If we have a slowdown, and we are already beginning to see signs of that, if we have a slowdown, and we have layoffs, and the market tightens, and the number of available jobs contracts, it may take longer to find a replacement job, than you would like. So, I know a couple of people who in 2009, when we went through the near-miss depression, after the excitement with the real estate bust, and all the bank liquidity issues and the Lehman Brothers bankruptcy that nearly sunk the ship, there were some people that started selling their services as fractional CFOs or fractional business development people or fractional operations people. And some of these people built up a really profitable, lucrative practice. And one person did that and finally retired last year. So that was from 2008 to 2022. And I talked to him right as he was making the decision to retire, and he said, I made more money working for myself than I ever did working for a company with all the benefits. And he said it was the best thing that ever happened to me, but at the time I was scared to death, and I only did it as a way to survive and pay the bills. So, you can do part-time work. Now, part-time work is not something that's got a narrow definition. That could be 4 hours a week or 2 hours a week or 6 hours a week, or it could be right up to the whatever your state or labor laws say is the definition of a full-time employment. Now, typically, I think federal law, it's 40 hours in a week, but there's some states that have a little bit lower threshold. So, I mean, it could be 1 or 2 hours less than full-time. And the reason they do that, and Walmart in the old days used to be legendary about that, they did that to avoid paying benefits and to make it cheaper. So, if you need a little money coming in is better than no money coming in. Having a job, even if it's part-time, is something that can go on your resume. Now, some people I know when they get laid off and they're having trouble finding a job, say they live in a secondary market. If you are, let's just say, a healthcare executive in Tyler, Texas, where I'm based, there are 2 big hospitals here. And if one of them fires you, the other one's probably not going to hire you. So let's just say you make $175,000 or $200,000. You're going to be hard pressed to replace that income in Tyler, Texas. So what do? Well, you may have to work on an interim basis. You may do a traveling job or contract work, but you create an LLC, and that becomes a resume job filler. So it takes the gap off of your resume. And some people Some people have found that that's been very helpful so that once they got back into the job market, they didn't have a big, huge gap. I know one person had a chance to do that, said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm really convinced, I'm really focused on getting a full-time job. And if I take a temporary job or an interim job, and then one comes along, I won't know what to do. And so he passed up a very lucrative interim job, and then the jobs he thought were going to come along didn't. And he went almost 2 years before landing another gig. And he had a big gap in his resume. So if you have a chance, you can look for a full-time job and do interim work or contract work. Those are not mutually exclusive, okay? And if you get a great job, and you have to leave your interim contract early, you will not be the first person that's ever done that, okay? It won't be the end of the world, and nobody's going to hunt you down and slander you in the press, okay? And unless you have some unusual, difficult contract that you probably shouldn't have signed in the first place on an interim basis, there's very little penalty to pay, and there's very rarely any hard feelings, okay? So don't think that these are mutually exclusive, because they're not. Well, it's a little bit over time tonight. We are still working on building up our YouTube community. I'm really keen on YouTube because it has it's got a lot of power. Every morning at 8 o'clock, we have a email that comes out that's drawn off our YouTube site at Guiding Your Career. And so we hope that we have over 700 videos. Now, I created a YouTube site in 2012 and then basically ignored it until about 2 years ago. So, I didn't even really understand YouTube, didn't understand it was a search engine. I put all my initial effort into LinkedIn. I'm a 19-year member of LinkedIn. But let me tell you, YouTube has a greater commercial engine to make money and get business more so than even LinkedIn. And so we are really focusing a lot on developing our community here. If you have questions, please reach out to me at info@johngself.com. If you would like some guidance on your career, I'm happy to take free phone calls. You can go to our website. At the bottom, it says Talk to John, and I think it's a 30-minute call. We don't sell you anything. We don't try to pressure you to do anything, and then we don't make you listen to a 15-minute pitch on all of our courses. It's free. It's here to help you. And that's what we're all about. Now, yeah, I got to pay the bills. I have light bills to pay. But when you need help, we'll try to help you any way we can. Listen, next week, next Thursday night, we're going to have a free giveaway, our signature course on career transition. So if you lose your job and need help in a transition, that is about a $1,400 or $1,500 value. We're going to give one course away next week during the broadcast, next Thursday night at 7. So tell your friends. The guidelines for how to enter will come out on Monday, and it's not going to be some big complicated thing, believe me. The point is to give it away to somebody who needs the help. So look for that announcement, and then join us next Thursday night for another edition of Career Live on YouTube. I'm John Self, and thank you for the few of you who've been with us tonight. I really do appreciate it. Please like our videos if you do, and recommend us, and share them with other people, and subscribe. It really would be appreciated. Take care. Cheers.